People's reliance on grocery stores for food, utilities for heat, and fuel for transportation has created an entire generation largely unable to take care of itself if the grid were to go down. But something is shifting. More and more families are walking away from modern conveniences, rethinking what they consume, and learning skills that many of us were never taught, like growing food, preserving it, and raising animals. But why now? Is it a realization that we've become disconnected from what truly sustains us, or is it a deeper unease? A realization that the structures we've trusted to provide for us may not be as stable as we once believed that they were. Today's guest is here to talk about all of this and more right now. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to LifeTVnow, where we unpack all matters of truth, faith, and freedom. I'm your host, Joe Artis-Horn. Today is going to be enlightening and probably put many of you on a brand new way of thinking in terms of the future and your willingness to step up for you and your families to be prepared for what is coming. But before we dive in, let me introduce who's here. My best friend and beautiful wife, Catherine Horn. And she's lived the homesteading lifestyle for over 4 decades, long before it became a movement, building a life of self-reliance through raising livestock, growing food, and practical skills. She's also dedicated herself to education and mentorship, equipping the next generation with skills that truly matter. Today, she's the founder of the Ozarks Homesteading Expo and Ladies Homesteading Camp. Please welcome Cheryl Franklin. Ladies and gentlemen, this is set to be an absolutely incredible program. But before we get started, I just want to tell you about something that I personally use, and I absolutely love it, and I think you're going to love it too. I'm talking about Eden's Essentials Organic Lion's Mane Elite. It's a powerful 2,000 milligram full-spectrum mushroom formula designed to support focus, mental clarity, and overall cognitive wellness in a clean, simple daily capsule. People all across the country are adding lion's mane into their daily routines for very good reason. It's certified organic, it's vegan friendly, and completely free from fillers or artificial additives or toxins. And right now we have a special going on at Eden's Essentials where you can save 15% off your next purchase of our organic Lion's Mane Elite when you use the promo code LIONLTN at checkout. And here's the thing, I don't know how long this promo code is going to last. I don't know how long these prices are going to last, so don't delay. Try Eden's Organic Lion's Mane Elite today with promo code LIONLTN to save 15% off your next order. My oldest daughter and my mother met you at a homesteading camp, and they came back and they said, Dad, son, you have to have Cheryl Franklin on LifeTVnow. This woman knows everything about homesteading and living off grid, and they were so impressed with your wealth of knowledge. And I said, you know, that is a priority because as we move into the days ahead, we have talked as a family for many years covering Bible prophecy. You can just see the trends. People live what is less than a week of resources in their own pantries based on what is available at the grocery stores. And this is something we've seen from personal experience. Over a decade ago, we had an online store called survivormall.com. One of the reasons I got out of that industry was because of the stress of having basically feast or famine constantly when it came to survival and preparedness supplies. You would see there's not much interest when things seem okay, you're struggling financially, and then the minute that Fukushima or something breaks in the news, something alarms people, now they rush for potassium iodide, or they rush for long-term storage food. And we're backlogged into oblivion. We've got 3 months worth of back orders that we can't fulfill. And I'm saying, man, I could have made a lot of money right now, but instead I'm just making a lot of people very mad, and I'm doing a lot of refunding. This place, man, especially in Western civilization, is not ready to see the grocery stores go down. Before we get into that, how did you start your journey as a homesteader? How did it begin? And what has your lifestyle kind of resembled over the last several years?
Well, it kind of started over food. I grew up in the Northeast where there was a lot of ethnic food and just scratch food. I tell people I never ate a hot dog out of a package until I moved to the Ozarks.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
you know, because there was just a lot of, you know, delis and just homemade food. And when I moved here, there wasn't things that I was used to, but I just kind of got intrigued, like, okay, where do you know, I grew up in Buffalo, New York. We're Buffalo wings now.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they hadn't arrived here yet
Okay.
at that time. And so anyway, it was just a quest more to create scratch food because everything was packaged when I moved here, except for fried chicken maybe, which we never really ate growing up. We never ate fried foods like you do in the South. So I just kind of got on a quest to figure out how to make those things. And I found like the Organic Gardening magazine and Rodale's stocking up, which Rodale is like a pioneer in some of the organic food scratch movement. And I had one Rodale book, you know, and but it was everything I needed. It was like my food Bible, and it taught you how to make hot dogs and sausage and how to butcher chickens.
Because that
all
was
the
before
things.
YouTube, so you couldn't just
that's
go
all I
YouTube
had,
something.
right? Just innovative organic gardening things. So I kind of went down that rabbit hole was just trying to make my own bread and, you know, meats and healthy things for my family, even before we had children. And then it just kind of got to, wow, you know, then you start reading labels and you start finding out, oh, well, I can make this and
Sure.
I can make this. And so then we had to get the animals to have the meat to make this, and then we had to build the gardens and we were kind of the strange people because we were doing things a little bit differently. Then we became, you know, kind of obsessed with the information that was there.
Sure.
You know, we just lived like that for years and years, but I would, you know, as more information came about, get more books and go to conferences where there were experts where I tried to get to know the people who knew about this stuff, you know, because I wanted to know more. So that's pretty much how we lived. But, you know, we both worked full-time jobs, and I was in the media business. And so, you know, we would be milking goats at 4 a.m. and dressing for success at 7, and you know, and the kids would milk goats or make cheese before we headed to school, and that was their life. And we didn't get involved in sports and a lot of things. That was our life, you know, gardening and doing the animals. And the kids were in 4-H and showed and things like that. But that was pretty much our normal life. And like you said, there weren't a lot of resources for that, you know. And kind of where I live, there were a lot of generations that were still doing those things.
What era are you referring to for those watching the program that might be trying to place that? Are you talking 90s,
so
early 2000s?
late 70s, early 80s.
Oh, okay.
And then as we were having children, 80s, 90s,
Wow.
you know.
So that's when you first started developing an interest in this?
Right, yeah, more like 78, 79. And my husband went to school at that time for alternative energy, you know, solar and wind and all that stuff at Crowder College, which is a local college here, which was the only college offered a degree in alternative energy.
Wow.
Sort of that. So,
But you think that there were fewer resources then?
oh, yeah, they're very much.
See, that's a head scratcher, because I would have thought the opposite. I would have thought back then, you know, grandma and
Well,
people doing
that's the
community.
thing, though. We skipped a generation. So as you talk, you say, I remember my grandma doing
Exactly.
such and such. I remember, you know, and I hear that all the time.
For
and
sure.
I remember my grandma doing that.
Yeah.
And butchering chickens
Yeah.
and, you know,
Curating
raising chickens,
meat.
going out in the yard and
My grandpa made his own jerky.
smokehouse
Yeah,
and
exactly.
things like that.
Yeah.
But it's always the grandparents. And so we skipped a generation, and you know, and I feel like it's convenience and fast foods and household incomes, you know,
Yeah, I think
women
that
working
would have been
outside
the
the home
generation to do
and
that,
dispensable income. You know, people didn't have to have a garden,
Yep.
you know, go to the store and get things. And as more and more products became available, used to we had a general store and you had your basics.
Yeah.
Now we have, you know, Walmart, which is why we have to have recycle now because everything comes in a package, right?
Right.
Yes.
And so that was what I started. And then as I did that, I taught kids how to do this. I did camps, how to do teaching people how to do that from kids to grown-ups.
So when you're talking about teaching people how to do this or that, or showing the young people this or that, you're talking about homesteading, living off grid, jarring food, stuff like that.
Correct. And mostly how to, you know, raise animals humanely and responsibly.
Sure.
And grow a garden without pesticides, and because was pretty common practice, you know,
Yeah.
in these parts. and has been for many years by that time. And so we were, determined to do those things without pesticides and trying to grow organically and things like that. So there weren't a lot of mentors of that persuasion at the time. Just throw some Seven Dust on that and
What do you think's fueling, if there is I don't know if renaissance is the right word, but if there is a resurgence now in interest in living off-grid and being ready for self-sustainability, is that something that you see is broadening now? And is that a side effect of a whole generation kind of worried about the fact that they don't have a clue?
Right.
Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, well, yeah, and there's several factors that kind of influence that. One is people's health, began to see the effects of the way we eat and not trusting the government. They told you to eat margarine, or they had a food pyramid that
Oh my word, now you're
for
speaking
years,
my
or
language.
Crisco, or those things, seed oils that are, and we're suffering because of that. So
Right.
people have done research. More people take responsibility
Kinda
for
waking
their
up.
own health and go, well, that's not right.
Right.
And then, of course, we had something like the pandemic era, 2020, and people, if they didn't even care, now they do. Because now they can't get their food, and they can't even get basics.
Wow.
Eggs, milk, butter, chickens.
So you think 2020 maybe also awakened some people?
That was,
to their clear
people,
dependency on
Right.
the system.
and people decided, oh, what will I do if I can't get this in the grocery store? Because this is what I'm dependent on.
Yeah.
And they realized, of course, they were stuck in home watching YouTube videos, but they realized that they could, if they had flour, make their own bread. If they had some chicks, they could have some chickens in their backyard or start a farm. And chicken ownership, backyard chicken ownership in 2018 was about 5.8 million people had backyard chickens, and it went to 15 million
Oh, wow.
by 2024.
So it over doubled in
Yeah, and it
the
tripled,
amount.
and even so now that's kind of waned back a little bit because, again, like you said, when there's something going on and people have an urgency, and then the people get lax or lackadaisical about it, and
or it's too much work, and then their life is busy, and
correct, and people forget. We
They
forget,
do.
just like the Israelites, they forgot.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I always liken it to that. How soon we forget, and you just have to have some kind of, unfortunately, tragic thing happen in a world event for people to wake up. But still, as a result, it has never gone back to the pre-2020 numbers. People are raising chickens now and baking bread and making their own food and canning and learning because they can, and because there's a lot of satisfaction in it. Of making your own food. There's a lot of satisfaction in gardening, they have found. And people are becoming more aware. People are reading labels. And finding out you can't even buy a jar of pickles without high fructose corn syrup in it.
And I think people
why do pickles need high fructose corn syrup?
That's a great question.
To addict you to them, but go ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes too, because like when Kate had her garden last year and everything, and the family was eating all of her fresh veggies, they could literally taste the difference from what you grow in your own garden versus what you buy at the store. And even how big it is and everything. I mean, she was doing everything as organically as possible and everything, not using any kind of weed killers or anything like that. So it was all very natural, but the size of it.
Yeah, and for context, when she says Kate's growing a thing and we're eating it, what she's talking about is my oldest daughter, who is already like way ahead of us even in terms of aggressively growing food and humanely raising animals. In fact, a lot of the food we ate last year, and I would love to take credit for this, I guess raising the daughter that's doing this, I could take some credit. But that's what she's talking about. Her oldest daughter actually fed us a lot last year. And you can literally taste the difference between food from a grocery store that's probably 30 days beyond when you should have eaten it in the first place. It's all propped full of dyes to make it look like it's still alive. And then the shapes and the colors that she's pulling out of the earth. I'm like, I didn't know radishes came in this dark purple-esque color. And then you bite into it and it just explodes with flavor.
Right.
And it makes me talk like this. It's so I don't know why I'm doing that. But that's what she's talking about.
It's so satisfying too, and especially if you get kids involved. Kids don't know that carrots, you pull them out of the ground. There's nothing more satisfying than digging up potatoes or pulling a carrot for a kid.
Yeah,
Right,
we
it's
had
like
actually, our youngest son helped Kate and I pull up all the potatoes, and he actually was having a lot of fun with it. So it's an educational thing, but you can turn it into a fun thing too. And I think just the other day they actually planted all the potatoes for this year. So
Awesome. Well, I had a
we're trying
parent
to
one
get them
time
involved.
when I was doing a teaching thing with some children, and we were grinding wheat, and I had a parent say, "Oh, flour comes from wheat." It just made me more determined. So they are out there.
It comes from a white bag that says flour, right?
Right.
I
So
think-
this generation, and there are more of those people out there than you realize.
Sure.
And,
there
And we're not
is.
mocking or disparaging. We're just
No,
she's
but I'm
talking
just
about
saying
the literal.
that ignorant, educational ignorance, not ignorance, but
Right,
just
right.
Yes.
not knowing,
Not knowing.
where your food comes from and what.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm thankful for that time during the 2020 where people were stuck inside watching YouTube videos, or whatever, of learning how to do things, and so.
To be self-sufficient.
To be
and to watch the
self-sufficient.
system that they depend on, like really not taking care of them.
But
And
there's
by the
nothing
way,
like in person though,
No, there's not.
learning.
kind of to bring this all around full circle, to me it's a spiritual thing. Because
Very
I
much so.
believe this program exists. If you remember the pilot, I talked about the Babylonian system. I talked about this program existing so that people could be reintroduced to the laws of God, the literal laws of God, which don't resemble standing behind a podium and preaching at you and then driving right to the buffet and then poisoning yourself with all kinds of excitotoxins and artificial fats and glucose overloads, which raises insulin. And then you're trying, I'm not mocking, but then you're praying through areas of discernment. Father, what would you have me do with this ministry? Where would you lead us next? And you have no idea that your brain is just beaming under the load of toxicity and artificial influences that you're putting into your body.
Right.
And so I often say with a straight face when people meet me at a conference, how you doing, Joe? And I'm not kidding, and I do it on purpose to get their reaction, and it opens a conversation about natural healing and herbs, the medicine that God has given us in his soil before we've patented it and changed the construct of it so we can, lawfully work with insurance companies to poison you for profit. But I'll look right at them and I'll say, I'm doing as well as I can for a guy that's living outside the laws of God. And that's the last thing that they expect me to say. What is this, a confessionary? And then I'll framework that. Look, I'm doing the best that I can to live on a fallen planet that has completely abandoned how we're supposed to nourish our body. And none of us are getting away with this. I can do the absolute best that I can with herbs and cleanses and purified water or distilled water and then remineralize and do all the things. But until we as a people get back to living under the laws of God, which is growing our own food, making sure that our children are being raised and nourished properly, until we make a space for him in our homes, and as fathers put God back at the forefront of our homes, we're living outside of the laws of God. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so none of us are going to get away with that toxic burden. I mean, it's a miracle to me that we're here at all with what we've done to God's earth,
To the soil.
to his soil, to the way that he intended for food to be developed in the first place. Prion contamination, what we're doing to vaccine our animals into oblivion so that the meats we have are completely it goes on and on. With just a few minutes left, I want to make sure we dive into some of what people can do, Cheryl, if they're watching this program, and we were never going to get it all in one program. So we're going to have Cheryl back
We
next
could
week.
talk for days.
Good. Absolutely.
If you're watching this show, and
Do
you're
a
thinking,
marathon.
no, I know, right? What are some things that our viewers could take away today, and maybe some first baby steps? Because I love your story. You're saying nobody spelled this out for me. It was under more difficult times because we skipped a generation. You were part of that generation between grandma, and I remember those days, and then today where people have no concept of this. Where does a person start?
Eat good foods, but eat seasonal. You can grow things. You don't have to live on a farm. You don't have to go buy 40 acres. You can grow some tomatoes in a pot and get started. But if you want to do something more, so you have more in your pantry, you can go to a farmer's market and buy organic tomatoes or cucumbers or whatever, a lot of things, and learn to pressure can. Buy meats from your local farmers as well, because then you know what you're eating. Your
exactly.
farmer. You're not getting hamburger from 50 different cows that came from 20 different countries, and
Yeah.
God knows what else is in them.
Exactly.
So, it's kind of creepy now when you learn these things.
It is.
To eat a hamburger from somewhere and go,
Yep.
I don't know where this came from or what's in it.
Yep.
And so, they could start small and start by, learning small things, learn how to preserve your food, because you don't know. Grocery stores have 3 days of groceries in them. And if they would not be restocked, they have 3 days. And so what do you have, in your gift? So find out what you like, your
Yeah.
family likes to eat, what's nutrition, what things are seasonal.
Right.
And then things you can just have on hand think about what you're going to run to the grocery store for if there was a crisis going on and when the wheels fall off. What are you going to run, go get?
Yeah, exactly.
But you need to have those things already.
You're the founder of the Ozarks Homesteading Expo. Where can people learn more about that? Because I know we're going to have viewers at this point. Like, you've completely compelled me. I recognize this is an existential threat to our existence, but there was no way in a 30-minute program you were going to teach me how to garden. So how do people learn more about self-sufficiency? Tell us about the website. Tell us about events that you're involved in.
Sure. So we started that in 2019. And so it's held in September this year on Labor Day weekend. We'll have over 40 speakers teaching on all of these things that we're talking about. And then thousands of people who are like-minded wanting to learn those
Yeah.
types of things. So people that you can create community with and become friends with and
Yeah.
exchange phone numbers. And you're sitting next to people that they want to learn these things too. But we have experts from all over the country, nationally, internationally known experts and speakers, authors at that event.
And I can
And
tell you
it's-
from personal experience that our family has attended, I think, 2 different versions of these events that you guys have hosted, and they've both come back inspired.
Yeah.
They're like, it was a lot of information, but not overwhelming. They took notes. They learned so much. I know you've been a tremendous help to my oldest daughter, Kate, who's in the live audience today.
She was at Our Ladies Homesteading Camp, and that's a week-long intensive thing. So yeah, she
But she's hungry for it.
That's
She did a
awesome.
whole week. She came and spent the entire week with you guys. With rising food costs, people will say things, Cheryl, like, yeah, but it's so expensive, man. Why would I do this when I can get, 12 microwavable burritos for $8, right? From the frozen department at whatever grocery store. But obviously we've kind of talked about the need to be self-sufficient again. What about the cost?
Well, the cost of your health, you can pay now or pay later,
That's right.
because it's not just because it's cheap doesn't mean it's cheap.
Exactly.
And you think your health is important. You need to do it because you deserve to do that for yourself and for your family. Be responsible for your health and your family, or you can pay the medical bills later.
Yeah. In today's world, there's a lot of stuff that we don't have any control over, but we can control the choices that we make in response to what we're seeing. How do you think, as we're getting pretty close to the end of today's program, how do you think homesteading gives agency back to people and replaces fear with more optimism about the steps they're taking?
Well, there's nothing like knowing, and everybody doesn't have to do all those things, but you should learn how to do those things, because everybody's not in the position to go buy a farm and to
Right.
raise all their own animals. But I think you need to know how to do it. You need to know how to at least make bread and can and preserve and maybe raise some chickens or process chickens or animals, because there may be a time when that's all you can
That's all
do.
you have. Now,
Yeah.
what about the guy that's in an apartment and he's living in New York and he's watching this? He's like, I love the show. I follow you with the supplements and the herbs and things. But man, for me, if the grid goes down, I won't even make it out of Manhattan. Like, what about that guy? Because you might be surprised. There's a lot you can do even in those limited living spaces to get started, right, Cheryl?
Well, I mean, food is essential. Food and water is essential, right? So everybody can can things. There's a farmer's market on every corner nowadays.
Yeah, there is.
And so you can go to farmer's market, and stock up. And you can go to places like Azure or whatever and get your
I love that.
grains and stock up grains, store well, so you can get your grains so you can make flour and things like that, or just buy flour, I mean, if you
And
have
you're
to.
also supporting the very people that are
Yes.
trying to make good food available to you. So I love that concept. If you've never thought about that angle, is that new for any of you? The idea of buying good food from a farmer's market, but learning how to jar it and preserve it. Have you guys thought about that before? That's kind of a new one for me.
Yeah, and you can put it, I mean, if you live in an apartment, I know people who have it under their bed or in their closets or every little, corner, just so.
Well, and you can even do small container gardens too. I know a lot of people do small container gardens.
If you have a balcony,
yes, exactly.
you can, make some, but for long-term storage, I always say when the wheels fall off, people need to have a good stash of food to get by.
Yeah, exactly. No,
And so
that's a great idea.
we don't run to the grocery store when we hear there's going to be something
storm.
going on, or even a natural disaster.
Yeah.
People need to be prepared for that as well.
Yeah.
Most people don't have anything in the refrigerator for 3 days either.
No, ladies and gentlemen, take it from my family. We have a many-yeared, very colorful history with survival products, and there's a reason we got out of that industry. It's the most bipolar, hard to sustain, hard. There are companies out there that I won't mention by name that do a pretty good job. I don't know how they're sustaining it, because it's the time when you should see that upswell, you cannot get your hands on anything.
Right.
They're out.
Yeah, you can't wait until it happens.
And they're going to prioritize the big, giant
Accounts,
box stores that have the big movers and shakers. As a small family, as a regional store, or as an individual, forget about it.
Well, grain mills right now, you cannot get them. They are out of
Yes.
stock.
Grain mills.
Yeah,
Yeah.
grain mills.
Oh, my
I mean, they
word.
are just way out of stock because people are becoming more aware and want to be able to buy them so they can stockpile grains.
Yep. To
Well,
make
ladies
their
and
own
gentlemen,
bread.
I hate to do this, but we are literally out of time.
We ain't
We're
even
gonna-
got started
We
with
just
all this.
barely
is
setting
the
the table. No, I know, but that's why we'll have to dive in a little deeper next week, okay? We're going to have Cheryl back. It's not a program that you're going to want to miss. We're going to follow up with Cheryl. We're going to do this again next week. For everybody here in studio, everybody up here on panel, Cheryl, my beautiful wife, thank you for being here this week. Right here on Life TV Now. Keep your eyes on the prize, which is Jesus Christ. We'll be back. Life TV Now is bigger than just a show. Every single episode of Life TV Now represents hours of research, filming, editing, production, prayer, and conversations that many platforms and networks are simply unwilling to have. Our mission is simple: to bring truth, faith, and freedom and real conversations about health and the world around us to as many people as humanly possible, and we couldn't do it without you. Every view, comment, share, follow, and contribution helps us continue bringing on guests, creating new episodes, expanding our reach, and keeping these conversations alive. If Life TV Now has encouraged you, challenged you, educated you, or helped you in any way, here are a few simple ways that you can support this mission. Subscribe and follow. Share our content. Engage with posts and videos. Pray for the mission. Contribute financially at lifetvnow.org if you feel led. Together we can continue reaching people with messages that really matter. Thank you for being a part of the Life TV Now family.